I'm sure you heard about the attack in Las Vegas recently where the help desk for the casino took the call and reset someone's password. And all they did was a 10-minute phone call where they convinced the help desk person that they were that individual and got that password reset. And then they were able to get into the account to do their damage.
Today, we're tackling a topic that's really important for every business owner and employee: understanding and preventing phishing attacks. Knowing how to spot and stop these deceptive practices is a major part of protecting your company's data, such as client information and your finances. Greg Brainerd is the CEO of Braintek, a managed service provider in Houston, and he's our expert who is going to go over real-life examples and actionable strategies to fortify your business against these ever-evolving cyber threats. Welcome, Greg.
Good morning, Raj. How are you today?
Great. I'm so glad we're talking about this topic because it's something that happens to so many companies all the time. So let's just define what that is. What is phishing?
So phishing is when someone is trying to send you an email, a text message, some kind of communication that you fall for that isn't necessarily legit. A lot of times it comes in emails. So you've probably seen those ones from the Nigerian prince saying, hey, I've got $1 million in a bank account. I just need to route this to you.
Yeah.
That's an old scam that's been around for a long time, but that's just one particular example, and there's a lot more. Hey, I've got this UPS package for you. Just click on this link or download this file, and then whatever that is, it just unloads its malicious payload. So phishing is just really trying to trick you into clicking on whatever they want you to click on in the email, whether that's the attachment, a link, generally by giving you money up. Or something of that degree, or loading software on your machine. So that's in essence what phishing is.
And there's different types of phishing attacks. I've heard of spear phishing, SMS phishing, targeted phishing attacks. Can you describe what the different types are and what each of them means?
Absolutely. So in the beginning, you take more of a shotgun approach. So let's say that I want to target 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 businesses. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to scatter shot that to everybody. And so it's very generic in nature. It probably doesn't have your name in it. So that's going to be the first attempt, but that's very widespread. Now, if I want to get more targeted, so let's say that I want to target the CEO of some company. So I'm going to email Greg at Braintek directly. And so that's a very targeted attack. I know who I'm going after. I know what their business is. I know I've got some kind of objective in mind. And that spear phishing, targeted phishing is the same thing. And SMS phishing is when you get a text message from an unsolicited person. All the time, on my phone, I get these messages, which I didn't expect, I'm not looking for. Some of them are malicious, some of them are not, but it's just really spam, that I'm getting. Hey, did you vote for this person? Hey, click on this link in both my phone and an email. So it can happen in any case.
Now, the spear phishing part of it is when you're actually targeting a specific individual, almost like you've got a plan, a sinister plan behind it, rather than the scattershot thing, right?
Correct. Absolutely. So if I know, it's really easy. I mean, if you go to LinkedIn, I can find individuals that work for a company. So once I go there, I can say, hey, this guy's the CFO of this company that I want to go after. Let's see if I send him an email, a LinkedIn message, an SMS message, whatever, depending on what information you have on that individual. And I'm going to just send him something to see if he'll fall for it. Or she in the case. I send them this link and let's see what happens. And that's very targeted. And what I might do is I might try to use different email addresses, coming from different sources, different types of messaging. So maybe I'm going to talk about the UPS thing or Amazon thing, or maybe some Apple iCloud thing. And depending on what's going on in your day, the person may look at it and go, oh yeah, I just did order a package from Amazon. Oh, I just did something with my Apple iCloud account, whatever, and so they'll fall for it. Now they may have an Android phone, so they'll look at the iCloud and go, "I don't have that," and so they can ignore it. It's very easy at that point, but
Hmm.
but that's exactly what it is. It's a very targeted individual that I'm going after with a very specific plan in mind.
Now, these emails usually contain either a link or a file, and that's where the danger comes in. Can you talk about the impact of what phishing does to a business? What are the risks?
So if it's a file, it's really hard to say, but it's going to be probably in the nature of downloading some kind of malware to your machine, which could either do a number of things. It could just sit there and just record keystrokes on your computer. It could send that information back to someone. It can actually be trying to do damage on your machine. It could be as simple as just trying to mine Bitcoin, but any of those activities are being loaded on your machine. So that's going to be malware. So you've got to have good malware protection on your machine in order to stop that kind of stuff. If it's a link, oftentimes it might be disguised as, hey, your 365 passwords has been expired, or and we're going to lock you out of your account. So you got to click on this link in order to revalidate who you are and then put in your credentials for that. And of course, once I give them my email address, my password, and maybe my 2FA code, they have access to get into my account and then they can act as me. And once they're logged in as me, now we're talking about business email compromise.
There's some very sinister ways companies or these attackers actually pursue companies too. I recall one time someone pretended to be the CEO of the company, sending a note to their assistant, but from their personal email, and it wasn't really their personal, but it was made to look like it was a Gmail or some address. And it was done in an attempt to get the customer list. And so it's not always just the files or the links that are attached. It could just be someone who's trying to trick an employee into divulging information and sharing files too, right?
Absolutely. So that comes into email address spoofing. So, I create a Greg at underscore Brainerd at Gmail or iCloud, or
Hmm.
maybe I just use some random letters and I just put in Greg Brainerd in the, as the person I send it off. The person that's receiving that has to be conscious enough to say, hey, who is this person that's sending it to me? Oh, it's coming from some random Gmail account. I don't recognize this. And so then I've got to ask questions. I've got to go actually maybe call my boss, or maybe walk across the hallway to them, or shoot them a text message or something to validate that that email is who it is. I mean, I've got personal email addresses. I'm sure you do too, Raj. And so sometimes I send emails with that. But at the end of the day, the person that's receiving it needs to be aware, prepared, and verifying, these types of requests. We've seen this, a lot of times with vendors. So let's say that a vendor that I'm paying is compromised. And so they send me a fake invoice. And then at that point, I am now paying the fake invoice and not the legitimate invoice. All of a sudden later on, someone comes back and says, "Hey, that you didn't pay us." And I said, "Well, I did, and here's my receipt." But at the end of the day, I paid the wrong person, and that's because the vendor had been compromised, and not my account was compromised. But it goes along the same thing where you've got the individual that is trying to trick an internal employee by saying, "Hey, can you go buy me some gift cards?" Okay, well, who are you again? Oh, you're the CEO. Oh, yeah, I want to do anything I want to make that person happy. Oftentimes, you'll see triggers in those emails that say, "Hey, Raj, I need this done ASAP," or "Don't talk to anybody else about this," or "This is a surprise," or "There's some kind of urgency really wrapped around this that it has to happen right now." That's a big trigger that says, "Hey, I need to slow down, look at the email address that it's coming from, and validate that. Are there any misspellings or possible, grammar mistakes that look kind of odd? Is the activity that this person is requesting me to do this not normal for them? Do they normally ask me for these types of things? Hey, did they just change banking information from a vendor's point of view? Well, pick up the telephone and call. But I warn you, don't use the telephone number in that specific email because that might go to that person that's asking you to do it. Go back to some previous emails or look it up on, on Google, making sure that you have the correct telephone number to call them up and say, "Hey, Raj, did you really ask me to change your banking information?" "Yes, you did." "Okay, great. Thank you very much." And if you say no, well, then I know that there's something going on, whether that was from your company that was compromised or this is just an outsider pretending to be you.
Those are some excellent examples. And because phishing can come from all different angles, it sounds like to mitigate for phishing attacks, you need a multi-layered approach. So let's talk about that. It seems like there's training involved, there's tools that you could use to prevent phishing attacks. Describe what that best practice scenario would look like to prevent phishing attacks.
Well, I don't know if you can fully prevent it, but here are the things that we do to mitigate those risks. So the
Hmm.
first one is always making sure that you have two-factor authentication turned on your account so that in the event that your passwords are compromised, that someone cannot log into your account to be the source of the problem for other people. So having that enabled is very important. There's also something that we can turn on with 365 called conditional access, meaning that I can block logins to my account from other sources. So I never log in from Russia. I don't want anybody from Russia logging into my 365 account. So those two things are going to be just protecting my account specifically. Now, then you can also have improved AI-based anti-spam tools, which are specific to phishing, where they look at those characteristics that we were kind of talking about. Hey, are they requesting money? Are they requesting this or that? Are they asking for your password information, saying that your account's suspended? Any of those types of things, where the AI-based rules that are within the anti-phishing campaigns will look at that and go, I think this is probably phishing, and then quarantine that off for you. That's very important. And that doesn't come with normal anti-spam software all the time. The other thing that we recommend is training. So there's a number of different sources for that, where we send out actually legit phishing emails, and they go to the employees of companies that we work for, and it says, hey, you've got this UPS package, this Amazon package. There's something wrong with your iCloud account. Click here to do something. And so what it does is the individual reads the email. If they happen to click on it, then a website comes up and says, hey, this was a training simulation that you fell for, and here's some steps that you can do to identify what things are wrong with this email so that you can be better prepared in the future. And of course, at the end of the day, the last thing you could do is, if you're not sure, you can send that email off to your IT provider and ask them questions. Hey, is this legitimate? We get those kind of requests all the time from our clients that say, hey, I'm not sure if this email is legit or not. We'll look at it, and we can tell, and we can say, yes, that is definitely spam, phishing, or just some kind of bad email, or no, that is actually legitimately coming from whatever source it's coming from QuickBooks or Microsoft or whatever.
That sounds pretty comprehensive, especially when you're looking at adding things like a simulated phishing attack, to do mock phishing attacks on team members, just to make sure that they're trained properly. And so, how long does a process like that take?
So once we set up a 12-month campaign generally, so that you get an email every month that would be a simulated phishing attempt. Now, what's nice about this is that we talk about, let's say a staff of 20 people. Not everybody's going to get that email on the same time or the date. So I want to randomize that. So you get it on, Monday, maybe I get it on Wednesday. So that way it's, we're not all on the same page about when this email comes in. And, then I can decide what's going on with it. I can look at it, I read it, and then if I fall for it, well, then I've just been told that this was a phishing campaign. The other thing, we've actually gotten clients that have forwarded those to us to say, hey, is this legit? And then we have to say, yes, absolutely. It's part of the training system. We're glad
Yeah.
that you asked us. So it's a really good practice to have, that you're just going through this on a routine basis, because you get, everybody's busy, and they have their own things going on, that's very hectic in the business world all the time. So having these training simulations just keeps everybody on their toes.
That's very, very clever. It's not just a one-time, hey, let's sit down when someone's kind of their attention is going in and out. This is an active campaign that you do every single month to just keep everybody on their toes, especially because these spammers are getting more and more clever about ways that they can phish information from people, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about an incident response plan for phishing attacks. What happens if something does get through? Should a company have an incident response plan? And if so, what should be in it?
So generally, if you fall victim to it, there's going to be a lot of things that go on. It really depends on what actually happened. So, like, let's say in the example that you paid the wrong person, you're going to have to immediately, if within a very short amount of time, you're going to have to contact your bank, and then you're going to have to tell them what happened. You can say, hey, look, I just paid a fictitious vendor, and I paid them $20,000 or whatever. Can you reverse those charges? And then you also have to go alert the vendor that happened to as well, and saying, hey, look, I paid the wrong vendor, and because maybe they're the source of the problem. And so that way, if they're the ones that actually sent the request, you got to get that remediated. If it was your account that was compromised and you're the one sending out those fake invoices. A lot of times they set up Outlook rules that divert emails to other people. So if let's say I'm an attacker and I get into your mailbox, I'm going to start looking through it. I'm not going to do anything, but I'm going to look through your sent items in your inbox to find out who you're working with. And if I find out that you're someone that deals with money or deals with the CEO or whatnot, then I'm going to say, okay, well, any emails that come from Raj, I want to be forwarded off to my outside of this so I can be alerted first of all. Then I jump into your mailbox and I can deal with it before you're dealing with it. So what we need to do is we need to look for those Outlook rules, delete them, change your passwords, set up 2FA on your account, and lock it down. And then potentially, depending on where the attacker was from, turn on some of that conditional access to prevent them from getting into your mailbox, in the future if, they guess your password again or get into your 2FA.
So that's actually a really good plan. That every company should probably have in place to make sure that they're being mindful of all the issues that could happen. Because if a phishing attack works, they could be installing ransomware that could shut your whole systems down, create financial losses. All kinds of bad stuff could be happening.
Well,
Um,
plus your your reputation in the business community is going to be tarnished as well. Are your
yeah.
vendors going to be excited if you get hacked and you've given up whatever information you've given up, or you've paid out lots of money that you shouldn't have paid out? They may not want to deal with you anymore because you're not taking security seriously in your business.
Yeah, and I think we hear about these things happening in large companies, and somehow they do get through it because their size. People still have to do business with them, but for a small company, it can knock you out of business.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
pretty. Yeah.
I'm sure you heard about the attack in Las Vegas recently with the casinos, where the support person, the help desk for the casino, took the call and reset someone's password. And all they did was a 10-minute phone call where they convinced the help desk person that they were that individual and got that password reset, and then they were able to get into the account to do their damage. So it's just being mindful of those things, trying to do your best to authenticate that person that is calling you or emailing or sending you that text message. Is this person legit, and how can I tell? And that's what you really need to identify before you do whatever you're going to do, whether that's pay someone, load that software on your machine, reset passwords, etc.
Yeah, and what you talked about is social engineering in phishing attacks, which is very common. It's a strategy that these people use to actually break into somebody specific.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
We
Okay.
we we had there was a business that we had worked with that fell for this. So their vendor had gotten compromised. And what they did, they figured out who was paying the bills, and they sent fictitious invoices to this company. And the company didn't realize it. They thought they were actually talking to the accounting person at the business that they work with. And what they did is they said, hey, I need you to change where you wire money to for this invoice over to this bank and wherever that was at. And so that's what they ended up doing. They said, yeah, well, I'm going to be a good paying client and I'm going to pay. So that's what they did. And they wired that money to the wrong place. And it cost them tens of thousands of dollars that they weren't able to get back in that particular case because the response was too slow in terms of their awareness, what had happened, because the vendor didn't find out about it and say, hey, by the way, you're 60 days late on this invoice. And they're
Mm.
like, what? I paid you. And so it's just, you need to be very cautious. The biggest thing on that particular one is any of your vendors that request a payment change, it's best to pick up the phone and call that vendor using the telephone number on their website to say, hey, look, did you authorize this payment change? All it does is takes that 2 minutes to do that, and save yourself a lot of headaches on that particular case.
That's a really good tip. Thank you for that. I think that's useful for every business. So, if you're a Houston area business, let's go into some of the best practices, especially in terms of how home use of maybe your home computer, which almost everybody does these days, right? Work a little bit from home, work a little bit from the office, and you may have two separate computers. How would a phishing attack on a home computer that a business does not have any control over roll over into potentially affecting the business?
Well, if you're using that home computer to VPN into your network or access your company email, both of those things you're going to be vulnerable at that point. So if you don't have the same security protections in place that you do on your business corporate laptop, then that machine becomes vulnerable, because what if I've got that malware and I'm logging into my email? Well, then now they could potentially capture my password from me typing it in on the computer. If I log into the VPN, the same exact thing. Now they have access into the network already that I authenticated them into, because they are backdooring in through my home machine. And so it's very important to either A, keep that home machine completely off the network so that it's not able to do that, or B, put the same security measures that you have on your corporate equipment onto your personal equipment to ensure that I've got the same malware protection on that machine. I'm still using 2FA to get into all of my accounts, that I still have my hacker monitoring software, MDR or MXDR, in place on those machines, so that it can be locked down and protected as well. Or policies that say no, you have to use vetted machines in order to get into our network. One of the two.
Excellent, excellent best practices, Greg. This entire discussion was a complete best practices guide for Houston area business as well as other companies who want to get protected from these phishing attacks, and it can save them a lot of money. And that's what a managed service provider like Braintek could actually help with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And so let's share some information about how people could get started if they want to make sure, one, that they're protected, that their teams are trained, and maybe even sign up for an analysis to verify that all their IT assets are actually in good shape so they don't get hacked. What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so I mean, they can reach out to us by calling at 281-367-8253, or they can visit our website at braintek.com. That's BRAINTEK.com. And what we'll do is we can actually take a look at all of these different systems and see what they're using. We can send out some simulated phishing emails. We can check to see if their spam policies that on their systems are actually catching phishing attempts. One of the things that we do, we can compare if you're using, let's say, the base 365 anti-spam system, which is okay, but versus the system that we use, which is a product called Avanon, and we can run a report for a week and see what kind of phishing attempts that Avanon would have caught that Microsoft did not catch. And so then at that point, we can tighten up the security on that and say, hey, look, here's some recommendations on that front. Oh, do you have your two-factor authentication turned on all of your critical accounts? Who has global admin access into your 365 or admin access to your G Suite? So we need to make sure that those accounts are locked down, because if you've got full access to that and your account gets compromised, I can get into any one of the person's mailboxes at the company. And so you definitely don't want that to happen. So you want to keep those accounts separate. You want to have separate two-factor authentications turned on, and you want to have randomized passwords that are very strong so that it's difficult for anybody to guess. If I'm using the same password for Facebook as I'm using for my 365, well, if Facebook gets hacked, well, guess what? It's not that it doesn't take that much of a stretch to say, I wonder if that works on 365 too. Hope it does, and now I'm into your account. So all of those things really help, keep minimizing that stuff.
Excellent takeaways and a great place to get started. Greg, thanks for a very insightful conversation today. And if anybody's out there that wants to get connected, Greg shared his information, and you can go to braintek.com to get started. Thanks again.
Thanks, Raj.